usually when you start the teachings again after break, you just offer the short mantla in quite a quick way. So it's page 9 and we do it together. Sashi Paki Chuchi Meto Jam Rirabli Shini Degen Padi Sange Shindu Miteovar Joko Namda Shinla Chaba Shoidam Guru Rana Mandala Kaniriatayami. Cream ball. She calls them cream balls. She gave them a new name. From now on, they're cream balls.
Cream ball is nice.
Yeah.
Cream ball.
Oh, great. I'm getting there. Right, so these questions? Whoa.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. It's good. All right, so something, Benedita brought up about the questions. And she's so right about this. It's actually such an important point, and I forgot to say, well, I forgot to bring it up actually. But there is this tradition definitely about, or this a way of studying, which is all about getting new doubts, getting more and more questions. That's a good thing. It's considered to be a very good thing, to have more and more questions. And our teachers try to bring about more and more questions. That was their kind of job. So sometimes the teacher is sometimes described as someone whose job it is to have more doubts arising, more questions, more doubts arising. And then we go to the debate ground and debate among each other. And a great part of the study is to try and figure it out ourselves. We ask our teacher, we ask a question sometimes, and sometimes the teacher says, go to the debate ground and figure it out. And when I was studying, there was one book. There was one book by a contemporary master. He had passed away. It's reincarnation, about the reincarnation. I actually made a movie. What's it called? No. Geshe Genze was his name. And he was found in Tibet. They brought his reincarnation to India. And it shows how he was shaved, the little boy, and how he's first crying.
Yeah, the unmistaken child.
No,
Not the unmistaken child. No, that's Geshe Genze. There's another one. There's another one about a reincarnation that was earlier.
I think it's just called reincarnation.
Yeah, I think it's just called reincarnation. That's right. Yeah, that sounds familiar. Reincarnation. Anyway, that boy is the reincarnation of an amazing Geshe, who was a Geshe in Jabal Musaling. And he was an amazing practitioner, and he passed away. He stayed in the clear light, and he was then reincarnated in Tibet. Anyway, he wrote a text, or he wrote several texts, commentaries on what we studied. And I loved it because it answered all my questions. Some of the most important points. But our teachers were always a little critical of those texts. They said, no, don't look at it. You get all the answers right away. You don't figure it out on your own. So in the beginning, it was like, look it up. I just wanted the answers right away. And then later on I could see the value in waiting and trying to figure it out myself, using my own intelligence to try and figure it out. So I would not look it up right away. Just leave it for the time being and think, can I figure it out myself? So this is all part of the study. This is part of Tibetan style study. I don't think I've said it in this group here, but I've said it on several occasions previously, that the idea is not that you receive information from someone. The idea is that you, through analysis, through investigation, get a better understanding yourself. Understanding that is at first maybe very intellectual, but then you take it deeper and deeper and deeper. So you take it closer to yourself and get a greater and greater sense. So that's the idea of study. So study and meditation are really not that separate. For us in the West, we have a very funny sense of study. To us, study is just maybe memorization of certain information. I mean, we don't memorize in a formal sense, but really that's what it is. A lot of our way of studying is just remembering the information. And then we say we know. We Buddhist study is much more than that. That is just the very initial first step. And then we need to use our own capacity and really take our understanding deeper, up to a deeper level. And first, there is no actual understanding of it. There's just a sense of it, which then grows more and more and more, becomes deeper and deeper, until we get a first-hand experience. That's the whole idea. And it's all part of the study. You could call all that study and meditation at the same time. And it's difficult. I mean, again, I said this, I'll do this on purpose to stretch your limits here. I mean, if we have more time, I would probably do it more gently. But again, it's this challenge. It's this challenge of using your mind. And, I mean, study is so important. This type of study is considered so important in Buddhism. And some people have the sense, oh, it's only in the Gelugpa tradition that they do these studies. But if you go to the different monasteries, the Nyingma monastery, Namdulling, strong debate tradition, 16, 17, 20 years of study and debate. I have a friend, a nun, she lives at the nunnery at Namdulling. She's a Canadian nun. Very bright, she's been studying there for 9 years now. Well, she debates, just as we do in the Gelugpa tradition. I mean, actually the institute I'm from is said to be non-sectarian. It's officially non-sectarian, but the study is more based on the Gelugpa tradition. Then in the Kagyu tradition, Sherbling, there's a monastery in India, Kaisi Rinpoche's monastery. Amazing debaters, 16, 20 years of debate. Sakya monastery, Dzongsa Khyentse Rinpoche's monastery. Again, Dzongsa Shekhen's good. A lot of debate, a lot of analysis. So you find it in all traditions. It's considered important in all traditions. But that's just the beginning, right? You just learn this kind of analysis to then do it on an everyday basis. So even though you're not in that situation, well, you've had a modern education, you're Israeli, you're used to debating. So honestly, you have some of the tools. I mean, some of your questions, I'm thinking, if you did the kind of study, you'd be at the top of the class right away. It's just that kind of ability to analyze that Israelis have, naturally. I don't know where it comes from, but it's there. So the point is that, and on top of that, so you have all that, you have the background in your education, so even though you don't go through the formal studies, I can see that, I believe you can actually do the same that the Tibetans do. It's slightly different, but the result will be similar, will be the same. And, you know, today is the youngest day of your life. You won't get any younger. This is the youngest you ever get, right? This is the youngest you ever get, so might as well start today. Okay? You won't get any younger. So age, anyway, it's not an obstacle. I mean, people think it is an obstacle. Things are a little harder, okay. But I've met a lot of people because they were a little older, they worked harder and they did much better than people who were younger. Because of intelligence and working hard, enthusiasm, effort is more important. Our ex-director or our late director, Geno Zangetsu, he used to always say that you need two things to study. You need intelligence and you need enthusiastic effort or enthusiasm, diligence. But of the two, diligence is more important. So I had classmates who were so bright, but didn't do much work. And we had classmates not that bright, really struggling initially, especially. They got to the top of the class because they worked so hard. And eventually, you can learn it. I mean, some people had real problems with that logic, the kind of logic in the beginning. But they worked so hard, in the end, they all got it. So some people are naturally intelligent, maybe because in a previous life they've done it. That's what natural... I mean, there's so many different types of intelligence anyway. Tibetans consider the ability to memorize, consider that to be a type of intelligence. It is. You're able to retain memory. Okay? And then some people, there's some debaters who can't memorize, but are really good at analyzing and they're very quick in the moment. And others, they're not very quick, but they're very good at memorizing. It's just a different type of intelligence. But we need everything. We need all of those. We need to develop all of those. And this is part of this study. And you memorize. I mean, when I walk out of this, if I ask you, some of the words I've used, you've memorized them. Okay? And you've analyzed. So you're doing this already. You're training your mind in that way. But to figure out the own answers, that is also part of the challenge. If you have a question, let me see. Maybe I can find an answer myself. I don't want to ask right away. Maybe I can figure it out. And sometimes it hits you in the most unlikely moment. You're brushing your teeth and you go, ah, that's maybe the answer. Right? And it's such a more, it's in a way, such a more effective way because it really stays with you. It's not someone else giving you the answer, but you figure it out. And then you understand all the implications much better than if I answered it. So there's really a lot to it. So if it itches you, maybe wait a moment and see, maybe I can figure it out. If I can't figure it out until tomorrow afternoon, all right, I'll ask tomorrow afternoon. But maybe it'll be answered in the meantime, or I can figure it out myself. Because it's actually all based on common sense. Okay? So many of the things, like when you ask me a question and I answer it, I'm sure there's a sense, oh, okay, that makes sense. Oh, why couldn't I see that? Because it's all common sense. We just haven't learned to think in those ways yet. But you see, after about a month of this, many of your questions would never arise again. You can answer many of the questions new people ask. Because you've already got a very good sense of why, and why it makes sense, and why this is so and so, and how it really applies practically. I liked your questions very much because they were practical. These were good questions because they're very practical. I mean, it shows that you try to bring it back into your daily life, and that's important. Because we know about our daily life. If we just keep this information we get, what we receive here, as like an abstract and never take it to closer to our own daily life, we won't figure things out. So we need to bring the two together. How does this relate to my personal life? In which situation did I misperceive reality and so forth? And it's hard. That putting the mind around in that way, that's hard in the beginning. It's the same as, it's the own inner beast, kind of, right? I mean, we want to go jogging every day. To actually get ourselves to start jogging every day and keep a continuity, that's hard, right? How often do we start some exercise? Very good for a week or two, and then that's it. It's even harder with this. It's even harder than this kind of exercise. It's a mental exercise, if you like. Okay, but getting back a little bit too, okay, so what we've been talking about is our misperception of reality. That we basically simplify everything and make it more concrete than it is. It's those two things we do. We make it more concrete, we make things more concrete, we give them labels, and a label is already selective. Very selective. A label is very, it constricts us. And people who have more words, who are more articulate, who have a vast vocabulary, they have a tool there to see things in more detail. Right? If we know more concepts, if we have more concepts, more labels, we are able to see things in a fuller way. The less vocabulary that we have, or the less concepts we have, the harder it is. So it shows us that words are selective, and we can only get a vaster understanding of things, or it helps us to get a vaster understanding of things if we have a vaster vocabulary. That's an everyday kind of life fact, isn't it? With education, we learn more words, more concepts. It doesn't mean we necessarily need them. There's definitely some very highly realized masters who haven't really got the words. I mean, they're highly realized masters. Maybe from their previous lives, they were highly realized. They were reborn. And especially when they're young, they don't have, they find it very hard to communicate their understanding because they lack the words. Right? I mean, there's some, you see, for someone who's highly realized, a lama, like a real spiritual teacher, right? Someone who's got realization. So that kind of person needs to not just have the knowledge and the realization, but needs other factors too to be able to benefit. Venerable Rita mentioned it, power and a reputation. Usually we want power and reputation for ourselves. These highly realized masters, these bodhisattvas, want them to reach as many people as possible. His Holiness the Dalai Lama wants to be known in the world because then he can reach people. He doesn't care for his own benefit. People prostrate or they give him things. He never keeps the things. There's actually a shop in McLeodganj now that sells all the things that were offered to His Holiness, and the money goes to TCV school. He doesn't care about the things. I mean, he lives a very simple life. But for the benefit of others, he accepts everything because it benefits the giver. It doesn't benefit His Holiness. It benefits us. If we give something, it benefits us. Because we are assisting a bodhisattva or Buddha in his action to benefit all sentient beings. Our benefiting His Holiness is benefiting all sentient beings, because that's what he's working towards. Okay? So I mean, it's just a symbolic thing we're offering, but it's the mind, the power of the mind. I want to please His Holiness, and in that way, because His Holiness works for all sentient beings, I'm indirectly helping the sentient beings. That's the idea. That's why there's so much positive potential. It's not that the Dalai Lama needs those things. If you offer something as Holiness, it probably ends up in that shop. But still, I mean, it benefits the Tisavi school, of course, on a more worldly level. So that's the whole point. Everything you find in Buddhism, there's a deep psychological reason behind it. All these rituals and they seem very dry, but these are just the external to help us internally, to do certain things. I mean, frustrations, of course, the big thing. And you were so kind to explain me on the airport about the difficulty of doing prostrations in Israel, right? I mean, that whole idea of not prostrating towards someone. And yeah, at the outside it looks that way. You prostrate towards either a person, someone like His Holiness the Dalai Lama, or a statue. I mean, that seems... But it is... I can see how that can be misunderstood, because as if there was something holy, if that statue in itself was something holy. It's not. The statue in itself only represents something holy, right? And then the person that I prostrate towards, like His Holiness the Dalai Lama, represents these incredible qualities. So I prostrate to these qualities, but the prostration is just a physical movement. It doesn't mean anything. The prostration is the mind. It's like an opening up, right? If I want someone to pour something into me, okay, give me some knowledge, on an everyday kind of physical level, I need to bow down, in a sense like a glass. You have to always hold a glass lower than the bottle in order to fill it. It's a principle. It's a physical kind of principle. And so since we work with those laws we're kind of used to them, we physically also put ourselves lower to get that mental state, like, okay, I want to receive this. Right? I want to receive the information. That's it. It's just an opening up. Okay, I'm ready to learn something new. That's it. So it's not the prostration. It's, if I'm thinking about the weather while I prostrate, I'm actually not doing prostration. These are not prostrations. I can just sit there and visualize it. Like this kind of, I'm opening myself up. That's a prostration. Okay, so it's important to understand that all these ritual things around, they have a very important meaning. They benefit me eventually, in a way. It's like all opening up the mind. It's all about opening up the mind. Anyway, to get back to the way we use words. We use words and concepts to understand reality. And we simplify things. We simplify everything because we believe in the words, we believe in the concepts, and we don't see the things for what they are anymore. Right? We just hold on to the concepts. And that's why, well, when Rita explained it so beautifully about karma, again, we have such a simplified idea of karma, as if there was one bubble of karma, solid bubble of karma. And therefore, yes, this idea, oh, karma, we should just let people suffer because it's their karma. I mean, every moment we create karma. Every moment a new action, we create actions, and every moment an action of body, speech, and, well, mental actions are created every moment. Our mind is there at all times. So they're negative, positive ones, and they leave a residue in our mind. So, if someone suffers in front of us, should we be saying, oh, it's their karma? Well, even though it is, but they may have the karma to be helped. Right? I mean, if everything was karma and it was like unchangeable, we don't need doctors anymore. Sorry, no doctors needed anymore. Because we don't need to go to the doctor. There's nothing that can be done. If we're sick, that's it, until the sickness goes away by itself. But no, we also have the karma to be cured. We may, not always. Sometimes you take medicine for your entire life and it doesn't get better. Sometimes, okay. But then, understanding karma, it kind of makes sense. For myself, I could just go, and this is not so much saying to other people, it's really relating back to myself. All right, well, this is what it is. Right? I can't do anything. That's what it is. What do you say in Hebrew? Malatzot? Right? It is what it is, what to do, right? Zemayesh. Oh yeah, that was the other one. Zemayesh, yeah. It is what it is. Zemayesh. Yeah. But the point is basically, the point is here that it is not always like that. Sometimes we can't do anything, but sometimes there is. We have the karma to be cured. Another person has the karma to be helped. So it's our responsibility to help them because no one deserves to suffer. So it's a lot more complicated than we may initially think. Oh, this bubble of karma, all solid, concrete, non-changeable. Sounds familiar? Object of negation. We do that all the time, and we need to start recognizing it, that we do it all the time. At all times. There's no time when we don't do it to a greater or lesser degree. So, to recognize the coarser times when we do this, or times when we do it in a coarser fashion, and then slowly we dig deeper. It's a slow process. It takes a lot of time. All right, but what helps us, of course, is reflecting on this in different ways. And we've been doing this by way of the Four Noble Truths, the Two Truths. The Two Truths. We've been looking at the True Truth, trying to understand them. And some of it may be a little indirect. It may not be directly obvious. But still, there's measures that are indirect. We need to give it some time. And understanding the true truth gets us closer to get a better sense of what ultimate truth, of what emptiness is all about, and of how phenomena really exist. Okay. So before I get into the etymology of the ultimate truth, there's something important that I need to explain. I've said it already a little bit, but basically, what is really important to understand is that the true truth can never be explained independent of a consciousness or an awareness. So it seems to be a little bit like cheating, actually. It seems to be a little like cheating. I explain the conventional truth independent on the mind that perceives it. And the mind that is perceived, I explain independence on its object. It seems like a circular argument. It is A because it's B. Why is it B? Because it's A. Okay, I can see how that is the case, but it's not as simple as that. It may be in this context, but really it's like object and subject are interdependent. What can you do? Right? I mean, something exists because there's the mind that perceives it. And there's a mind that perceives it because it exists. I mean, they have that kind of relationship. So to understand that relationship, it's part of understanding the whole process. But we don't stop just there. We don't stop just there. There's so much more explanation. So every time you think about this, you understand the mind better, which then helps you to understand the object better, which in turn helps you to understand the mind better, and it goes this kind of back and forth. It's the same with emptiness and dependent arising. Phenomena lack inherent existence because they're dependently arisen. They're dependently arisen because they lack inherent existence. So you have that back and forth too. But every time you dig a little deeper, when you hear an inherent existence, you go a little deeper, which helps your understanding of dependent arising, and vice versa. Okay? So it's not really a circular argument. We don't get stuck there. We go a little bit deeper every time. Like this. Not just like this. Kind of getting stuck. It's really like going a little deeper every time. So, now with the ultimate truth, ultimate truth is also very much dependent on a mind that perceives it. Okay, so the mind that perceives the ultimate truth is very, very important. The mind that perceives the lack of inherent existence is extremely important. Because when it comes down to overcoming our suffering, that is the mind that actually overcomes our suffering. There's a lot of other methods, but they're only temporary. So the most temporary methods are, the most immediate, but temporary measures are psychological kind of means and measures that are described in modern psychology. Right? They're really part of the methods of helping the mind, of making the mind more peaceful, more calm. Okay? It's very immediate. There's an immediate benefit, and on top, if you really apply it, there's an immediate benefit. I mean, more immediate than realizing emptiness, because, well, you don't realize emptiness. But there's temporary measures that we still need to apply. Meditating on patience, for example. I mean, that is a very Buddhist kind of method that helps us to decrease our anger. Meditating on patience. Did I say meditating on anger? No, meditation on patience. Meditation on love and compassion. Okay? These are all temporary measures that allow us to be more kind, more compassionate, have less anger. Immediately, the anger is a little lessened. Now, meditation on emptiness is not that immediate because it's much harder to understand and it doesn't immediately have an effect. But eventually, if we really want to overcome our shortcomings, our anger, our jealousy, our arrogance, our attachment, we need to realize emptiness. No other way around it. The mind that realizes emptiness is so important, and not just realizes emptiness directly, experiences the ultimate nature of all phenomena directly. It's so important because the root of all our problems is
Ignorance.
what kind of ignorance?
Well, assuming there is inherent existence.
Yes. The root of all our problems is the mind that perceives, that holds inherent existence. What is the best opposing factor to that? What is the best opposing mind? A mind that perceives the opposite. A mind that realizes that phenomena don't exist that way. And directly, not just intellectually, not just conceptually, but directly. That is the mind that can actually overcome the misperception of reality. And since the misperception of reality, that mind, that ignorance, induces anger and attachment, when it is gone, it can't induce anger and attachment anymore. It can't induce negative actions, and it can't induce suffering. Okay? So that's the mind we need to understand, or that's the mind we need to develop. So first we need to just get a sense of emptiness. Then think about it more and more. Get a correct kind of assumption regarding that. Then we go further. We try to really understand it, realize it inferentially. Then we take that mind even deeper, combine it with deep levels of concentration. And then we realize it non-dualistically. Let me explain what is non-dualistic realization. We realize it non-dualistically. That is the main goal. Okay. So having explained that, let's look at the etymology of the ultimate truth. Which page is that on? 10 in the Hebrew, thank you. Okay, 10 in the Hebrew, the etymology of the ultimate truth. So Sanskrit, Paramata Satya, that's the Sanskrit term. In Tibetan, it's Tundam Demba, pronounced Tundam Demba. Do you have the Tibetan version?
Yes.
Tundam Demba, okay, great. In English, you don't. Tundam Demba, or turn means meaning, object, function, fact. Lots of different meanings of the word turn. Tam means supreme, highest, excellent. And Demba means truth, reality. So, really you could translate as the ultimate truth as, literally speaking, a truth that is a supreme meaning or something. But that translation is never used. As opposed to previously truth for a concealer, that is the literal translation of conventional truth. But here with the ultimate truth, you don't say it in that way, supreme meaning truth or something. That would be weird.
Highest.
Pardon?
Maybe highest.
Highest truth, yeah. Well, here the different translations that I'm familiar with is ultimate truth, absolute truth, actual truth, final truth, deepest truth. Right? It kind of all describes it. So these are the 5 different types of translations. There may be more of it, but these are the only ones I'm aware of. The ultimate, absolute, and so forth. And there are also 2 etymologies of ultimate truth, or in Tibetan, Tundam Demba, or Paramata Satya. So one etymology, and this is traditionally described in the text, so I just give you the traditional kind of explanation. It's slightly abstract, but, well, might as well give you the complete kind of explanation of what the etymology of Tundam Demba is. So one etymology is truth for the supreme meaning. Right? Truth for the supreme. As before, we had truth for a concealer. A conventional truth is truth for a concealer. When I say truth for da-da-da, then the da-da-da is usually a mind. Right? Truth for. A truth from the perspective of an awareness. So this truck is a truth for the mind that misperceives the truck to be existing inherently. It's a truth for that. To that mind, this truck exists truly. Therefore, it's a truth for a misperception that misperceives the reality of this. It's not an actual truth. Okay, remember, this is important. This truck is not a truth. Doesn't mean it's non-existent. There's a difference. Here in the context, truth, in the context of the true truth, truth means something that exists the way it appears to a sentient being's mind. However, this truck, whenever it appears to be inherently existent. It's false in that sense, right? We have other examples of objects that are false. What is like a lie is false. It appears to be one thing, but in reality, it's deceptive. It's not real. So a lie, for example, that's a common day, everyday example. But the sun also, the rotation of the sun, we could say is a false object because it appears to exist one way, but it exists in a different way. It doesn't have to do anything with the sun. We're not blaming the sun. It comes back to our misperception of that. But still, since the sun and our mind don't exist really separate, we can say that the sun is perceptive. Right? The sun that we perceive is deceptive, is false in that sense, right? But likewise, this truck from a deeper kind of point of view, from the point of view of the ultimate nature of this truck, it is false. It appears one way and it exists in a different way. Okay? So the ultimate truth is a truth. The ultimate truth is an actual truth. It does not appear one way and exists in a different way. Let's see how. So, here the etymology, the first etymology is truth for the supreme meaning. Here's supreme meaning, Tundam in Tibetan. I was almost tempted to use the Tibetan. Because supreme meaning, it's like Supreme Court, or kind of like, it's just such a weird word. So just to say Tundam is probably better. But never mind, okay, I use the English. So here's supreme meaning, refers to the meditative equipoise directly realizing emptiness. So the mind that directly realizes emptiness. To that mind, the emptiness of this truck, the mind that directly realizes the emptiness of that truck, to that mind, the truck is a real truth. Because it appears the way it exists. Right? To that mind, it's a truth. But it also, to that mind, there is no mistaken appearance. That mind is totally correct. It does not, the lack of inherent existence of this truck does not appear to exist inherently. Does that make sense?
You said that the mind is totally correct, so...
Say it again?
You said that the mind is totally correct.
Totally correct.
Okay, so we're talking about a wrong mind when we're talking about conventional reality.
No, I'm sorry, I'm talking about the ultimate truth.
I know, but we're talking about conventional, we're talking about a wrong mind?
Yes. Oh, it's true. The truth for a concealer. The truck is the truth for a concealer, and that concealer is a wrong consciousness that wrongly apprehends the truck to exist inherently. To that wrong mind, this truck is a truth. So from that perspective, due to that being the case, this is called a truth for a concealer. Whereas the ultimate truth, the lack of inherent existence of this truck, we say that is an ultimate truth because here the ultimate refers to a mind that perceives the emptiness, the ultimate truth itself, and to that it is a truth. Okay? So one is a wrong consciousness, one is a correct consciousness. Okay? But there's more to it. It seems a little unfair. Why do I not... that seems a little unfair. Because I could have a correct consciousness that perceives this truck. Okay? To that correct consciousness, it's not necessarily a truth. The inherent existence, the truck, it's not necessarily a truth. But it still is in a sense because it still appears to be inherently existent. To every consciousness that perceives the truck, the truck and the inherently existent truck appear mixed. Does that make sense? So in a sense, to the mind that any kind of mind, not a Buddha's mind, but a sentient being's mind, to whichever mind, if you think of your awarenesses, whatever consciousness there is, when you take to mind this truck, the truck always appears to be existing objectively, inherently, and from its own side. You may not be aware of it, but that doesn't make it non-existent.
So what is not fair?
No. What Maya pointed out very correctly is, I call this a conventional truth because it is a truth for a wrong consciousness. That is my reason for saying it's actually false. But then, and the emptiness of this truck, I say is a truth, it's an ultimate truth, because it's a truth for a correct mind. Right? Well then I think Maya's argument is, well, you say it's a truth because it's for a correct mind a truth, and in the other case you have a wrong mind. Shouldn't you use two correct minds in both cases and then decide whether it's a truth or not? Right? Do you get that logic? Yeah? Okay. But actually, she's right there, but I could actually say to any mind, this is a truth, because to any mind, this appears to be truly existent, independently, inherently existent. But to the mind that realizes the emptiness of this truck, that does not happen because it's a non-dualistic mind. What does that mean? I'll come to that in a moment. I'll come to that. That's a difficult question. We need to see why, but let's see. Okay, so anyway, the meditative equipoise directly realizing emptiness, that is the supreme meaning. Therefore, the emptiness of this truck, the lack of inherent existence of this truck, is a truth for a supreme meaning because it is an object of the mind, that is the meditative equipoise realizing emptiness directly, and this mind is a supreme meaning. Does that make sense? Supreme meaning here means a specific mind. It is a truth for that specific mind, for the mind that realizes emptiness directly. That is the first meaning of Pendam Demba, ultimate truth. So ultimate here is translated as supreme meaning. Here ultimate means a specific mind that realizes emptiness. It's a truth for that mind, and therefore we say it is an ultimate truth. Okay?
I didn't know.
You didn't get it? Good. I'll say it again. I'm glad you brought it up. Okay. Ultimate truth. Tendam Deva. So ultimate truth. What does this mean? What is the ultimate? What is the truth? Here, ultimate, what is in English called ultimate, in Tibetan, Tendam, can be translated as supreme meaning. And the supreme meaning means a mind that realizes emptiness. Therefore, the emptiness of this object is a truth for an ultimate, for a specific mind. Therefore, it's an ultimate truth. Did you get that? Can someone do it in Hebrew? I want you to say in Hebrew, because it's good for the person explaining it, and it's good for everyone else who struggles a little with the English.